Welcome to Blade HQ, everybody. Today is February 3rd, 2024, and we have a lot of new knives and a lot of knife news to talk about. It has been a big week in the knife world. But before that, we have a sponsor today, and that is CRKT, Columbia River Knife and Tool. This is one of our favorite brands here at Blade HQ because they do a really good job of teaming up with some of the best custom makers and designers and bringing their babies, like the best knives ever, into a much more affordable package. Like this is the CRKT Squid XM. So Lucas Burnley has the custom squids and even the mid-techs, and they get really expensive if you can even find them because custom makers can only make so many knives at a time. But this guy is here at an affordable price in a really well-made build with fun purple coloring, and it's something you can get just about anywhere, which is really nice. We love CRKT here at Blade HQ, and they have been very generous to provide us with a sponsor for a giveaway in this. So every Monday at noon Mountain Standard Time, we do a live like this where we do new knives, and we do a giveaway in that live. So if you are not watching this in the live, and the numbers tell me that you're probably not, please join us in those lives at noon on Mondays and get in on these giveaways because it is a great time. We will see you all in the lives. Now, as for knife news this week, tomorrow is a big day. February 4th, 2025 is the day that Crucible goes up for auction. So for those of you who are unaware, Crucible is a company that makes a lot of blade steels. In fact, on the table, they made this blade steel, this blade steel, and this blade steel, and this blade steel. So half the knives on the table, and I'm willing to wager many of the knives in your collection are made with Crucible steels. However, in late 2024, they put out a warn notice saying that they are nearing bankruptcy. And if they do have to close up shop, they're going to have to lay off all their workers, and Crucible steels may see a bit of a bump in production. And because of that, this year at SHOT Show, actually, a lot of people were telling us, a lot of different brands were saying, yeah, we're moving from like S90V to M390 and from S30V to LMAX or whatever. Like a bunch of these steels that are Crucible, that are sort of the meta of knives, are getting moved away from because we need to make sure that Crucible can keep putting out steel. But tomorrow it goes for auction. There are a few interested parties, and we'll be actually going on a little bit of a live on Wednesday to talk about what comes of that auction. So stay tuned. It's going to be a big day. The other big thing is last week, Teeter versus Lopez was vacated by the Ninth Circuit Court. That case was a very important one a couple of years ago where in Hawaii, they sued for a Second Amendment violation in butterfly knives. And the court upheld it. They're like, yeah, this is a violation. The knives are legal. And then Hawaii appealed it, and then they repealed their ban on butterfly knives. So in the law in question was repealed, and because of that, the court vacated the case because it's saying it is a moot point. We're trying to say that a law is unconstitutional even though the law no longer exists. Now, this is something that has been done before in Krakow versus Vance in New York in 2019. There was a very similar law that involved gravity knives that the district court ruled was unconstitutionally vague. Like anything could be called a gravity knife based on that law. So Governor Cuomo repealed the law. Well, he signed a repeal to that law. And because of that, the court says this is moot. Now, the reason they do that is so that precedent doesn't get established. Because if that was taken to a higher court, i.e. the Supreme Court, who then had to chime in and say, actually, this is unconstitutional, that is precedent that is nationwide instead of just for that state. So instead of allowing it to be a big victory for Knife Rights, the organization that has been really leading the charge on this, it has been little victories here and there. Now we're hoping for one of those big victories soon. And if you want to get in on those big victories, just go over and donate to Knife Rights. They are onto some really big stuff right now. In fact, another case that is challenging the Federal Switchblade Act in its entirety. And if we can get all of that stuff repealed, the knife world can get a whole lot bigger. But lots of news on the knife law front. But we're here for new knives. Let's talk new knives. Starting with this first guy right here, the Koenig Knives Mini Arius. And I'm going to hold this very gently because I'm pretty sure this knife is worth more than my car, because my car is a derpy Honda Civic. But this is a primo knife. In fact, when people ask, like, give me an example of a no-holds-barred knife. Like, they don't care how much this thing's going to cost. What is it? I tell them the Arius. And we got the Mini Arius here. And this one's got this interesting texture. I forget what word they use. You can find it on the listing and the link in the description. But a Bowler M390 blade, a very nicely tuned titanium action. Oh, it's so smooth. Woo. perfect milling, really nice ergonomics, a great blade to handle ratio, and just an attractive design. Blue anodized accents. This thing is not cheap, $865 for the Arius, but if you are looking for a knife that is probably the highest manifestation of what a knife can be in the modern era, then I would point you towards this Arius, or the mini Arius in the case of the one in my hand. Very exciting from Koenig knives. We don't have too many of these, and they are going fast. In fact, we already had one of the mini Arius models, the one without a flipper, sold out. So if you want a mini Arius, I would go now. Next up, from ProTech, we are finally getting delivery of the FlyFather 2. So the FlyFather was a knife they came out with a long time ago, and Dave said he probably wouldn't make it again because of how crazy the latch system was. But Dave is good friends with Lucas Cow, who's the owner of Squid Industries, and they collaborated together. In fact, I believe you can see the Squid Industries logo here on the backside, to sort of turn this into a great ProTech style knife and Squid style knife. So we have a bushings action on channel aluminum handles with really nice sound. Zen pins, no latch, just like all of the competitive flippers like, but then a pocket clip and definitely a ProTech style blade if you ever seen one. This one feels very Godfather, very piercy, slashy. It's like a great self-defense battle song. And I know that in recent years, the battle song world has definitely moved towards the competitive and artistic styles, but this one feels tactical. And that is very ProTech style. We got 154 cm on this guy, made in the USA, goes for $330. Next up, new from Reate Knives, we have the PL-XE. And this one is a bit of a different one. What I like, first of all, is this kind of drop from the handle to the blade. It feels very chef's knifey, and it's gonna be great for if you need like a pocket chef knife. Nitro V blade steel, also gonna give you decent edge retention, great toughness, and corrosion resistance. I wish we saw more kitchen knives with Nitro V blades. G10 handles. What I think is interesting about these G10 handles is they kind of wrap around here in the back, which almost gives you the comfort of an integral, but the ease of maintenance of a conventional knife. It has their proprietary lock. It's a pivot lock. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but what you do is you press on the pivot and the knife can swing. Keeps your fingers out of the blade, path of the blade, and then you can just lock it there, and now the blade isn't gonna go anywhere if you need a little bit of extra security. It comes in a bunch of different colors. This one's the orange and black one. On the table, we also have black and stonewashed. These are fun. I'm excited to see Reate really pushing this lock out to more things. These are also going pretty nicely priced as well. $122 for the stonewashed, and then $127 for the black coated blades. Next up, Benchmade is bringing us something new that is also a bit of a throwback. So this is the Bailout, which has been out for a long time, and it was sort of known as the tactical bug out. When it originally came out, it was much like this one with an FRN handle and a CPM 3V blade, but this guy has the FRN handle and the S30V blade, which is the same build out as the bug out. So definitely an everyday carry sort of Tanto, and I know a lot of people out there, especially in the EDC world, love the Tanto because it sort of gives you the benefits of a Warncliffe and a drop point. You have a nice index tip if you need to do some tip work, but then you can just drag the tip across the table if you need to do, like open a box or something. It's very fun, and I'm glad that we have a stainless here. This is the first stainless steel on a Bailout. We've seen 3V and we've seen M4, and this is the first S30V. However, there is a Magna Cut also coming later this year, and that's the one I got my eye on. But very exciting from Benchmade. These are going for $200, so not too pricey either. Next up, Cold Steel has a new addition to the Engage line. So the Engage has two broad lines. There's the big one, which is this guy, and then the small one. The small one is more EDC friendly, and it has both the drop point and the Tanto. The big ones only have the drop point until now. We have a nice compound ground Tanto blade. It's running on the Atlas lock, which allows you one-hand operation, and it gives you two pins, you can see them both here, of reinforcement. So it's gonna be a really strong lock too. A nice hollow grind for slicing, and a very robust tip on a stout S35 VN blade. This thing is ready for hard work. Big G10 handle, choke up for some more fine tasks. It's a behemoth of a knife. Goes for $190.95. Next up, the Warcraft Tanto series continues to grow. This one is in Sanmai 3, and it's the medium size. So first of all, just a great tactical Tanto. Cold Steel is sort of the pioneer of the modern Tanto in the tactical space. with that huge hollow grind. And the hollow grind gives you a very thin edge, and it's great for snap cuts and really getting nice slicing stuff. But then the tip, which is what Lynn Thompson loves to abuse and show off, is just how robust the Tanto makes the tip. First of all, the width of the blade just gives you a lot more material, and then the flat grind at the tip makes it so you're not gonna break that thing. And this one is in Cold Steel's signature Sanmai 3. So Sanmai 3 is a Sanmai, which means in Japanese, 3 plates. So plate 1 and 2 are on the outside, and they are usually a very high stainlessness and very high toughness blade steel. Well, not even a blade steel, you almost call it a structural steel. Something designed to hold up a building that you can beat on all day long and you're gonna be fine. And then in the middle is something harder that is gonna be able to hold an edge much nicer. This is something that you'll see on a lot of katanas and other fine blades, but here it's there to give you the same performance, and the middle steel is called a VG1. Think of it kind of like VG10, minus a bit of edge retention, plus a large chunk of toughness. So this is a great stainless knife if you want something that will not rust, but you can still beat the living tar out of. Very nice cold steel. That is going for $180.95. Next up from Cold Steel, we have, to my knowledge, the most budget-friendly of the Gurkha Kukri series. So Lynn Thompson, who started Cold Steel a long time ago, recently sold this to GSM, has been a student of the knife his whole life. And he's worked with a lot of people, including the American Bando Association, to develop a lot of knives. And this one is sort of a love letter to the original Kukri, but dressed up as a modern tactical knife. Has a great big SecureX sheath. This one's got a 52-100 blade, so that's a steel commonly used in ball bearings. So it is crazy tough, nice and resilient, because like if a wheel on a car hits a rock at 70 miles an hour, you can't have that bearing breaking. And that's the same idea here is if this knife hits a copper pipe inside of a wall you're trying to bring down, you can't have the knife failing. A nice big guard, a Crayex handle, so a really secure grip with a lanyard hole if you want to throw something on there to give you a little extra. And it's just a big, mean chopper. And look how incredibly thick this blade is. It is probably a 1/4 inch, if not a little bit more. And the nice broad tip gives you a lot of chopping power. I just want to go hack something up with this thing. But alas, this is one of your knives and not one of mine. These ones are going for $180.95. And last knife on the table comes from GiantMouse. So GiantMouse has had the Grand out for a while, but this one is the Blackout Grand, which is much like the original Grands. However, it has black micarta, a black blade, and then blue accents on both the pivot collars as well as the backspacer. In addition, instead of the LMAX blade we're used to on the Grand line, we have Magnica, which I think is a good call here. The Grand was always supposed to be sort of a hard-use camping knife, and I think they did a great job with it. However, I really wanted the extra toughness that would come from a more balanced steel like MagnaCut or S35VN would give you. And now we have MagnaCut on the Grand. It goes for $265, and I would pick these up soon because every time we've dropped a new Grand, they sell out quick. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. It has been a lot of fun with all these new knives this week. Make sure to join us next week for everything else. And if you want to see even more new knives, head over to the new arrivals section at BladeHQ.com. And with that, we'll see you all next time. Except everybody here in the live.